What's up, guys? It's Chaz. I'm at Black Horse Motorworks where I work, but it's Saturday, so I'm not working on normal stuff that I work on. I'm actually working on the tank. So this is my CLS 63 AMG. I've previously mentioned it in one of the videos. I got a really good deal on a set of downpipes and tune for it, so I decided to go ahead and go for it. It should be around $650, I think, is the low end. If I'm lucky, it might be even more, but we'll find out. I got my buddy Colby here.
Hello.
Hello. What's your YouTube channel that only has 4 videos?
Race.kc.
Race.kc. So check that out. I'll see if I can tag it, but I don't think I'm allowed to do that yet because my channel doesn't have enough followers. Anyway, so this is kind of a dual purpose. I'm not just doing a vlog of us doing the install. I'm actually gonna kind of do an install guide because I bought these pipes and I've been looking around. I have the rear wheel drive, not the 4MATIC, and there's no guide whatsoever, not even a typed guide. WiseTech actually has an install guide, but it's for the 4MATIC, which tells you the first thing you're supposed to do is remove the engine. Yeah, we're not removing the engine today, though we are going to unbolt it. So anyway, I'll do a couple clips. I'll try to cover the entire process so you get a good idea of what it is, but I also don't want to make this like an hour-and-a-half long vlog. So we'll figure it out. Thanks for watching. Alright guys, so got the car up in the air. To start off with, we're going to pull this midsection belly pan here. Let me see, I'll try and point out some of the bolts. It'll be this one here, nothing up there, nothing there, one here, one here, one here, one here, and that one there. So that'll pull this belly pan off. Once that one's off, we got to take this rear section off, which is bolt here, missing one. There it is. One there, one here, and one here. So that'll take both of these down. That'll expose the engine, transmission, and of course where we're going, which is the downpipes way off into this darkness. Can't see it well now. I'll get it lit up and get some more video later, but that's all of that. We're going to replace these pipes on both sides, that's the cat, and it's a cat delete pipe, so this will be gone. It'll be a turbo back pipe, so it's going to go from the actual turbo itself all the way back here to this flange on both sides. So there's a ball flange here and a slip flange there. I'm guessing that's for alignment purposes, but that's it. Alright, Colby got the belly pans off. So we're going to be, after this, first thing we're going to do is take the mid pipe off. So it's this flange straight up here. We have to take the O2 sensor out right there. Sorry, it's hard to get it to focus. And then all the way down here to these joints right here. So and then of course this little cross brace here, because that'll prevent the pipe from dropping. It's just these 2 Torx bolts here. I think they're T40s is what it looks like, and I don't believe anything else has to come apart to do that. So we'll work on that and then get another clip. Alright, we're taking the cross brace off. I pointed out these holes and the little plugs a minute ago, but we just realized there's a little other small hole right here, and you can actually see the little E-Torx through it. He'll show you. Just hit it with the impact. It's already loose. Is it all the way out? Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and now the brace is free. So I'm going to take these 10mm plastic nuts out right here on each side, and that should give me enough room to bow this down, pull the bolt out, and pull the beam out. Recording. Alright, so there's 2 flanges here. It's a little flange with 2 M6 studs that stick through, or maybe M5, and then 2 10mm nuts on the outside. Take that off of both sides. On the driver's side, there's this little bracket here. There's a 13mm bolt that goes into this bracket here. Take that out. We took the 2 downpipe bolts loose right here and one on the other side. And while I was there, and you can barely see it, trying to zoom in up here, there's another brace up here for the bridge pipe, and since I am doing bridge pipe downpipes, you have to take that bolt out as well. And so I got both sides loose. The downpipes are now hanging. They're actually hanging from the clamps down there above Colby's head. Right there. I've got those left tight because before we take the entire downpipe loose, I've got to take the pre and post cat O2 sensors out of both sides. And I have to be very, very careful with these. O2 sensors typically use stainless wires. Stainless wires are pretty fragile, being twisted up as well as bent very much, so they'll break, and you can't resolder them because they're stainless. So I'm going to try my best to reach up there, grab a flashlight, to reach up to the top of the gearbox. You can see the connectors right there towards the center of the screen, and unplug them. That way I can twist them freely and not have to worry about messing them up. But we'll see how that goes. Once those come out, I'll take the clamps at the rear loose, and then we'll pull the pipes down, and then we'll be on to the bridge pipes, which are known as the bastard childs of this entire job, because I will likely have to take these engine mounts off the block and off the engine cradle and set the engine up on block. So that's the part we're all going to figure out together. Alright, we got the downpipes are completely loose, and I got the O2 sensors out. I was going to disconnect them, but they are not really reachable, especially with everything enormously hot. I don't recommend doing it this way because you risk breaking one of the wires to the O2 sensor, and then you have to replace the O2 sensor. And on this car, I think they're about 350 bucks each, and there's 4 of them, so it adds up really fast. Sorry, it's super blurry. There we go. So what you do is, if you are doing it the way I just did it, when you take it out, just be very cautious not to let it get a pinch point and start to twist the wire up. You want to try and keep everything fed and kind of let the wire coil rather than twist the harness on the inside. Just got to be very careful with it and cautious. And then when you go to reinstall them, make sure you twist them back up so it's got a load on it, and that way it'll end up in the rest position without any twist in the wires anymore. It's just something you kind of have to figure out. Anyway, there's one here, one there at the top. Let's see if I can get the focus again. It's not want to focus. There we go. One here at the base of the pipe. Same thing on the other side. One here and one way up here. I just used a 22mm open-end wrench. They weren't super corroded or super tight, so I didn't have any problems with it. However, if yours are a little bit older or have corrosion, then I do recommend using an O2 wrench. It'll wrap all the way around the sensor, and it's much lower risk of stripping it out or causing you absolute nightmares. Anyway, and then there's the bottom of the bridge pipe, so that pipe's gonna have to come off too, and that's gonna be the fun one to get to. Alright, so the mid pipes or cat pipes themselves are off. The left side is this ball joint style. Just get the clamp really loose and it'll pop out. And then the other side has a ceramic donut gasket that slides into place. You can actually see some of the residue from it here. It looks like my RaceIQ pipes do not come with a new one, so we're going to have to get the old one off. It's going to be kind of tricky. Anyway, this is just the, there we go. It's just the residue from where it was installed. And this is the gasket here. So I've got to get that off. We'll mess with that in a little bit. We're going to work on getting the bridge pipes off and let that pipe cool all the way down first. Alright, so we're taking this brace off on the passenger side. It's kind of a strange one. It has an 11mm nut holding it in place. Just using a long quarter drive here. It's not super tight. And a wobble socket and an 11 deep weld because it does on a longer stud. And this is the brace for the downpipe. Alright, so this is the passenger side brace. It's bolted to the block like that. It goes to the end of the downpipe. It's just a little brace to hold everything up. I don't know if we'll reuse it, but just get it out of the way. Alright, next we'll take this E10 Torx out that's holding the heat shield. You can see here, and it's right here. It's a little bit of a bastard to get to because the socket wants to rub on everything. This will not stay in focus. I'm getting aggravated now. Sorry, I gotta wait 5 minutes for the focus. There we go. Anyway, so that's the E-Torx there. It just holds this heat shield on that covers up the back of the downpipe, so we'll have to get that out of the way. Alright guys, Colby's working on getting that little heat shield out. There's another bolt. You can't see it. This is gonna focus really slow, but yeah, you can see the socket on the bolt there. It's on the right side. So there's the one you see the open hole, and then the one on the right side, and that's the heat shield that covers the bottom of the downpipe. So you have to take those 2 bolts out, and I believe the heat shield will slide out. While he's doing that, I'm gonna work on the driver's side. Driver's side is a little bit more open. However, the steering shaft I can already tell is going to be a pain in my ass. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out. Before you dismount this, alright guys, so I just tried to take that steering shaft out because that would have been nice and easy. So I took this lower bolt and nut off, and then I took the upper bolt, and I had the idea just to slide the shaft out of the way, and it should disconnect on one end to the other. Well, that wasn't true. Unfortunately, I think I have read something about somebody else having to take this under brace off and then unbolt the steering rack and let it hang in order to allow this shaft to disconnect and hang out the bottom. Hopefully it's not too bad of a job. We'll find out in just a minute, but I reinstalled this bolt. That's the spline connection, so that's most of my alignment. This is just a single bolt through a square drive. It's hard to see it, but anyway, there's not much alignment to this. So I'm going to leave this one out, unbolt this subframe, unbolt the steering rack, and let the steering rack hang down. That'll allow my shaft to disconnect, which will give me clearance to get in here. I also did find one of my turbo fasteners here is pulled out of the block. So that's going to be a fun fix there. I got to figure that out and see what I can do about that while I'm in here. Alright guys, we pulled that undershield off. It's right there. And then we dropped the rack right here. It's two 18mm bolts with nuts on the back side over here. And then on this side, it's 213, same thing with nuts on the other side. On camera. So it's a 13mm lock nut. Goes to the frame here. You have to snake in with a wrench to get it out. This will give us access to our engine mount. I know I'm going to have to remove on this side, possibly this side. I took the upper bolt out of here. Now I screwed up. I stuck the bolt back in so I could keep track of it while I unbolted the rack, and I forgot to take it out before we dropped the rack. Now what that did is pulled the telescope shaft here out, and it's not wanting to push back in. I'm going to have to get inside the car and do a little bit of reading and see if I can figure out how to recollapse this, because this extended out. You can see the gap. This is supposed to be up here, so it's pulled out quite far, and I gotta figure it out. It doesn't seem to be damaged. I can still turn the wheel and still feel solid, but I'll have to get in the car and figure out how to recollapse that. But note, make sure you have this bolt out before you let the rack come down, because it will extend that shaft. Alright guys, so I'm back on this side. Rack's out, and that gave us some clearance, like I said. So now that heat shield that we unbolted here under the downpipe, or the bridge pipe, is now free. There we go. And it's laying right here on this side, so I'm just going to kind of fidget with it a little bit. This is where the steering rack used to be. And ta-da! I may reuse this. I'm not 100% sure. I'll just have to see if it fits with the new downpipes. But this just blocks the engine mount from the downpipe. Alright, Colby's currently doing a nightmare. So the support bracket, which we'll actually have to reinstall. Hey, you know what? It's loose for a second. How loose is it? Can we get past it? Leave it just like that for now, because this bolts back up to the new downpipes on the little flange that sticks out of that little short piece. That's where it bolts. So we're gonna leave it loose because I believe those bolt to this support bracket here. But the driver's side is being kind of a bastard. It's also an 11mm weird size nut there. Well, we've got it backed out, so now this pivots out of the way, and hopefully that'll be enough to get the downpipe out, get the new one in, and then swing it back into place, tighten it up, and bolt it to the new downpipe. That'll save a little bit of effort there. So we've got that loose. I've started on this side as well. You can see now the downpipe bolts are exposed, so I started breaking those loose with a long ratchet. I'm going to go ahead and pull, grab a socket and pull those the rest of the way out. Then there's one bolt that I'll have to do from the top side. I'll pop the hood and come down with a long extension. It threads forward into the downpipe. So when we get that loose, then this downpipe will be loose. Hopefully I can start to fish it out. I'll likely have to pull this engine mount to get it the rest of the way out, and then I got to figure out where these heat shields go that were included with the new pipes. I think I know, but we'll figure that out in the next clip. Hey guys, so we've made some progress. We're still working on getting the downpipes off. The downside is I have a 90,000 mile car, and the exhaust studs on the turbo are pretty stuck and corroded. I do not want to break them off because you cannot really get to them to replace them if they did without pulling the engine. No, I don't want to do that. So we'll flip you around this way. So we're on the passenger side right now. So if you see, I got the right one out. That one came straight out. That one didn't fight me. Just a little long ratchet, and it worked its well back. The center one there that's still there locked up after it got loose, and the left one did as well. So we took a torch and heated them. The left one with a lot of heat glowing red. Finally the stud itself came loose and backed out. The center one we're still fighting. I was only heating the nut on the center one, so now I'm going to try and heat the entire stud, and hopefully the stud will release from the turbo housing itself. Get that out. And then we have the nightmare of the front bolt, which I'll do through the engine bay. I'll show that in another clip. But I do highly recommend, if you have a higher mileage car, plan on having a torch so you can heat these studs, because you do not want to break them off. You'll hate yourself. Anyway, I'll give you another update shortly. Alright, so we are now on the driver's side. I've had to torch these nuts and studs to glowing pretty much, and we're getting them out. This one's super loose. There it goes. It's glowing hot. Anyway, and that's the only way we're getting these out. I'm gonna replace all the studs to be on the safe side here, but the front ones are gonna be the next concern. We're gonna finish getting these other two out. There's one up above that, and there's one more there. Alright guys, we just finished taking the top two bolts out. Sorry I didn't record that. So I've got my borescope set up here. You can see the camera running down just under the wastegate actuator arm. and it's pointing at the turbo there, and it's because this heat shield right here blocks your view of the top bolt on the passenger side. So here on the borescope, if I can get it to focus, I'm trying. There you go. On the right side right there, you see that bolt head? It's already unthreaded from the downpipe, but it's still laying in the turbo flange. So to get access to that, we took this 1/4 inch drive extension and ratchet right here, and just went down through here, and you tuck it under the shield and slightly to the right, and using my borescope, you see here, I was able to guide this on. I'm not going to do it now because it's extremely fidgety, but anyway, you just get it on there, and then boom, I took that bolt loose. On the driver's side, you can see Colby's trying to fish it out with a magnet here. Right, let me zoom in. Sorry, this thing does not like focusing in these tight spaces. So looking straight down the driver's side, at the tip of this magnet, that bolt right there, which is going through the side of the turbo. It's super easy to see on your own car. That's the driver's side front downpipe bolt. So you just take that one out. And I think you can leave these laying in the flanges when they do come out, because I think we will probably reuse them on the new downpipes. Alright guys, the downpipes are loose. After we took those top bolts out and the 3 bottom ones were already out. That was probably the hardest part of this whole process so far. So you can see the downpipes are just laying here. There's not enough clearance to get them out of the engine bay, so we're going to unfortunately have to take the engine mounts out. I don't know if it'll only be the lower portion or if I'll have to take the entire mount out. Probably the entire mount. It's several E-Torx bolts. I'll go over that once we get that sorted. One other thing I wanted to cover real quick is when I lowered my steering rack, I mentioned it earlier, I forgot to take this top bolt out, and it caused my steering shaft to extend all the way out, and it was hanging out of the firewall like so. I was trying to push it back in, it didn't want to move. I forgot there's another universal joint just under the dash that allows this to wobble in every direction. So the trick to sliding it back together is to hold this shaft and make sure you're lined up kind of facing the steering wheel. It's hard to understand, but you'll figure it out if you run into the same situation. And then just kind of put moderate pressure on it, and it will eventually do this and just slide back in no problem. And then when I go to put the steering rack in, I'll just make sure my wheel is still centered, which I think is this position here. Slide it back into that knuckle. Since this is not a splined connection, as long as I've got it facing the same direction I was to begin with, everything's good. It'll snap right back together and we won't have any problems. And I do have this shaft all turned different directions right now just to get it out of the way. As you can see, it's further forward than before, and that was to give us clearance to get to the turbo bolts up here. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking the engine mounts out and pull the pipes out, and I also will have to change the heat shields up top. I'll cover that in the next clip. Hey guys, I got the passenger side's engine mount out. There's this main top E18 Torx or E-Torx bolt that holds the mount to the engine bracket, and then we've already taken the two 13mm bolts out the bottom. That went up through right ahead of the sway bar link up here. Colby is unbolting the actual engine mount itself from the block. I've got the engine supported several places. I've got this block here. It's just 2x4 between the sway bar and the pan to help give it a little support. I've got this high stand right here, threaded up, and it's on a rubber puck also under the pan here. And you don't want to use just one of these because you want to spread this weight out so you don't do any damage to your oil pan. And sorry about that, let me get this focus again. And then I've also got these rubber sheets shoved in here. They don't have much weight on them at this moment, but they are helping support it a little bit. So once this engine mount is out, we will be able to get the stock downpipe out. Once the stock downpipe's out, I'm going to take the stock heat shield off and replace it with the heat shield for the new downpipes. Then the new downpipes themselves will go in. I've got to see if I have all the bolts I need. If not, we might have to make a parts run. Got the passenger side downpipe, or bridge pipe is what this is called. I've gotten it off. I could get it out without pulling the engine mount off the side of the block, but you can't get the new pipe in, obviously, because it's much larger. So Colby's still working on that. Anyway, just want to show you the difference here. So this is the stock pipe. It's flat, skinny, and then you can see the inside of it. The wastegate pretty much immediately runs into that flange. That's, I think, going to be the same on the new one. And the size of the outlet here. The new downpipe. Much smoother transition. Everything's wide open. And so this is how they go in. So it's a complete redesign on how everything goes together. So this flange is in place of where this support brace used to be, and this will just be a nut and a bolt on the new pipe on the top. Anyway, I'll get this all put together, and here's where the O2 sensors go in. I am installing both, even though the second one is disabled, just so everything's back to assembled and taken care of. So something else you have to take off is going to be this starter shield. Just figured out the hard way. It is exposed to the positive on the starter. So there's a bolt here. Here, pull it down. There's 3 bolts on it total. One in the bottom right on the bolts into your engine mount, which you have to take out anyway. And then there's 2 here on the left side. And they bolt into this bracket. Well, this is the starter here, and this is an exposed positive battery cable. So what will happen is when you're taking these bolts out and that shield starts moving, we'll actually touch this and throw sparks. Don't recommend it, so be very cautious of that when you're taking it apart so you don't do what we did. And anyway, we're taking this shield off to get to this top left bolt on the engine mount. It's in a really tricky spot and you can't get extensions and shit to it, so you just have to go through this direction and take it out. Yeah. So there's that. Get that off, and then the mount should come out, and then we're going to aim for replacing the heat shield that's up there at the top. All right, we got the passenger side engine mount out. This is the bolt that was being a pain in the butt. Ended up using a ratcheting 12-point 10mm wrench, which will actually grab onto the E-Torques there. And then you can see the other bolts. There's one in each corner. There's the small one here, which is for that shield I mentioned earlier. There's this one just for a hose clamp, and then the main for the bolt there, and then these 2 smaller holes are for the heat shield that we originally took off a few steps ago. But yeah, that's the passenger side engine mount off, and now we have full clearance to install the new downpipe and heat shield. But we're going to change the heat shield first and then install the downpipe. Well, we have room to reach it. Alright, we're doing the heat shields, and they're actually a little bit more difficult than I had planned. The driver's side and the passenger side front bolts. Passenger side's a little bit easier to get to. You do have to take this little spring clip right here, holding the harness loose. You lift the top of it up, it has a locking tooth there, and then push it off. I don't think it gets replaced because the new heat shield does not have this little tab to snap it onto. The bolt for it is an E-Torques 10. It's right under this little flange. Sorry, let me get the camera down in there. Yeah, so the bolt goes just under here, it bolts into the block. You can see the little stanchion there just dead in the center of the screen. The rear bolts, which are way back there, it looks like we have to get from the bottoms, or the back side, so we're going to have to kind of do that blind, maybe use a borescope to guide ourselves, but I'll figure that out in a moment. And then hop over to the driver's side. The driver's side bolt, sorry for the sideways view, it's the only way I can squeeze the camera down in here. The driver's side is right in here. Sorry, my magnet's sticking to anything, but yeah, right there next to where my magnet is. That's the front 2 bolts. There's 2 in the rear, and then the rear one, can't see it at all through here because it's underneath everything, but yeah, it's far in the back. I'll get another clip from the bottom if I can to show you where those are. All right, guys, got the passenger side heat shield out. This is it. This is the new one that comes with it. You'll notice first thing right here is this bolt hole here is in a different spot than this one. Not a big deal. There's another hole in the head that this bolts back onto, so you just use a different spot. Now, I'll show you how this goes in there. So on the driver's side, I mean passenger side, I keep saying that. This goes up, slides over the turbo, and then it'll flip up, and it bolts to the head right there. And that's your new heat shield. Now the problem I'm running into, as you can tell, there's no clearance to work on around this thing from under the car. And from the top, I don't know at all how I'm going to get to these holes. Here's the new hole I'm going to use on the back side. And then you can see the front hole up towards the front. The front one I can get to, I'm not worried about that. It's this rear one, I'm not sure. I may be able to squeeze my hand through there and take the air box off. I don't know. I'm going to figure it out though. So Colby's getting the rearmost heat shield bolt installed. This is probably one of the most terrible bolts so far to get to. So this is the opposite side, but it would be the further back bolt like this one right here. It's just you can't, the larger new shields block you from any access on the bottom of the car, so you have to go from the top. So in order to get clearance on the top, you can see we pulled out the foam heat shield baffle that goes over the injectors and the harness, the air box, and yeah, I think that's it. That's actually really easy to do. Just take the hose clamp loose from the air box here, and then lift up the airbox. Just pull it from the back side and it'll tip and pull out. It's literally just resting there. That's of course after you take off the other engine covers. Good?
Yeah.
Alright, so it's tight. Again, we used a 12-point ratcheting 8mm wrench, which will fit those E-Torx bolts. I'm going to snug up this other bolt here and then put the foam back on, put the airbox back on. We'll go into the car and hopefully install the new downpipe for this side. Once this side's assembled to the mid-pipe, we'll hop back on the other side and swap the downpipe out. Alright guys, one more note. I did also take, this is on the passenger side, this is the tube, I'm not even sure what it is, but it's a tube that runs down the side of the engine. It blocks access to a lot of that heat shield stuff you need. So just
Because the starter.
oh, that's the starter. It's a starter battery cable. It's just wrapped in aluminum. Anyway, there's this one little bracket here. I took this bolt out, which is also a E10 Torx, and that allows you to push the harness down out of the way, and that gives you a lot better access to the bolts down here for the heat shield. Just a note, that'll help you a lot. I also unplugged this coil pack, which I'm going to plug it now before I forget. Just something else to keep from cutting our hands, all the pieces while reaching through there. Grab a flashlight. Alright guys, finally got the heat shield fully installed. You can see it up there. That was fun. I got the exhaust gasket hanging on the original front bolt. I think I'm going to reuse that one. I got the downpipe for this side. Just to show you kind of how it goes in here without the engine mount in. This makes this amazingly easy. It's going to slide through here, and then just for mock-up purposes, I'm not lining the gasket up or anything right now. It's going to go in like so. I think it comes with new bolts, I'm pretty sure. I'll let you know in just a minute after we start bolting it on. But that'll bolt in there. We got to reinstall the bracket up here and the O2 sensors. Alright guys, we're making a parts run. The kit came with some new Allen bolts. I don't like that. I want to go back to the factory studs. I had to heat the original studs to glowing red, so I don't know if they're weakened or not. I don't trust it. So we're going to make a run down to O'Reilly's. I'm going to pick up an exhaust stud kit they have. It's if you want to do the same and you want to get them ahead of time, they are M8 by 1.25 thread exhaust studs. Make sure you use exhaust studs. They're usually the black colored one. This the kit came with these. They're probably fine. I just this is a real pain in the ass to get to, and I want to make sure I'm comfortable with it. So we're going to replace the studs like they originally were and new nuts, and I'm not going to use these bolts. Alright guys, this is the only type of stud kit we could find locally. It's a Dorman product, Helpline 03430. Sorry, it's not focusing here again. There we go. They're a little long and they have this extra little stanchion on the top, like guide stanchion. I'm going to see if that will fit. If it does not, I may take and chop the tips of these off. Not exactly what I wanted, but in a crunch, this is all I could get today, and they are exhaust studs. I know they're nickel coated, but they are actually exhaust studs. So I'll get these in and shoot another little quick clip of that. Alright guys, I put the exhaust studs in on the right side. Just turn them in until they stop and kind of snug them up. You don't want to over tighten them because they will mess up the threads if you do that. I've already slid in my exhaust gasket. I am reusing the OEM gasket. They're really expensive to buy new, and mine were in good shape. So I'm going to leave it be and go from here. I'm going to slide the pipe on, check my clearances on these type of studs. As long as that's good, I'll put the nuts on loosely, and then we're going to go back to the top and put that top bolt in that goes in from the front of the car. Alright, so one more quick video. The studs did work. I did not have to trim them. Let's see, you can see them right there. A little long, but I don't have any clearance issues. They don't run into anything, so I'm going to stick with it. The nuts are all pretty loose still, and the pipe still wobbles around. I'm going to go let the car down, go back to the top bolt, the one that went from the front angle of the car. Put that one in and tighten it all the way down. Then I'll come back here, tighten those down, and then we're going to move over to that support bracket right here and put a bolt through it and tighten it down. I'm not sure. I think this will go like this. Tighten it down against the head and tighten it down to this, and then we will be done on this side. We'll put the engine mount back together and set it down, and then move to the driver's side. Alright, I just tightened up the upper bolt for the downpipe. It goes from the front of the engine bay. This is the cluster I used right here to do so. It is a Wobble 13 extension on a short, like 2-inch quarter extension on a wobble attachment on a locking super long extension. Seems crazy, it is. It's a giant pain in the butt. It goes down here, goes right on top of the turbo. I'm not going to fish it down there because I've already done it, but it goes there. You can see possibly here. No, probably not. Just a screen won't focus, as always. Focus. Focus. There we go. That's the bolt on the top of the turbo. I've already got it tight, but you need those extensions to fish around your new heat shield down here. Right there. So, just something to note. Alright, I'm going to go back underneath, tighten up the other three, and tighten up the support bracket in the rear. Alright guys, this is getting real fun. So the new downpipe obviously is massively larger than the old downpipes. This causes all kinds of clearance issues. So to reinstall the engine mount, I'm trying to reinstall the heat shield that goes on top of it first. Originally I took this off, so it would have still been left off now, but there's not going to be clearance to install it. So I'm installing it to the mount. I'm going to attempt to install the block back to, or the mount back to the block, and see what happens from there. Clearance here is really tight, but I might be able to get that bolt in. And then clearance on this side looks okay right now, so hopefully I can snake the bolts in there and still reassemble everything as designed. Alright guys, this passenger side is now done. Just a few keynotes. We had to put the starter sheet, well, put the heat shield on the engine mount first, install the engine mount to the block next, then install the starter heat shield. This is kind of a pain. Be very careful of the power stud on the back of the starter solenoid, because if it touches the shield during your install, it will short out. There's the bolt right here and two bolts over here. Kind of a hassle to get to, but you can and get them tight. And then you can see the clearance on the downpipe. It may even be slightly touching this heat shield. It's really hard to tell, but it is. I mean, there's no wasted space there. I gotta say, these are RaceIQ pipes, and I've got to give them credit because they used every single possible hair of space they could. You can see right here on the back side. Sorry, it will not focus as always, but yep, that's tight. But anyway, oh, and then we got to tighten up this bracket. I still have one bolt there you can see to get to. This one's already tight, so I got to snug that down, and then officially this side is done. It'll just be the mid pipe that comes after this, and or the actual cat pipe that will come after this, and then this side would be done. Before we put the mid pipe on, we're going to jump back to this side. We're going to do the same thing, pull the engine mount out, pull the engine block portion off, install new studs on the turbo, change the heat shield up top, and then same thing with this bracket here, which is the support bracket for the downpipe. Let's repeat everything on this side. I'm not going to show you every step of the way along this, but I'll throw in a few clips of what we get. Alright guys, got the driver's side downpipe in. The support bracket is tight. The O2 sensors are in. I put new studs in, and the flange is bolted to the turbo. Reused the gasket on this side as well. On this side, one quick note I didn't put: when you pull the engine mount on this side for clearance purposes, there's one other bolt going through the AC compressor right here that goes into the engine mount. You have to remove that as well. Also, when you're reinstalling the engine mounts, both sides, pretty much any parts on this car, you'll want to put all of the bolts in by hand first before tightening anything down, because if you tighten this one down, it might put a strange angle on another hole, and then you won't be able to get the bolt in. Anyway, we're going to put the engine mount back in now, upper and lower sections, get that all tight, and then the steering rack needs to go back into place, and the shaft needs to be reassembled. I'll put a few clips up during that process. Once that's done, that'll be left will be reinstalling or installing the new catless mid pipes that go down the side here. A couple little brackets and things like that. I might do a startup with just the open down pipes just to hear and see what it sounds like, but stay tuned. Alright guys, made a lot of progress. I didn't put too many videos of this because it's mostly just the reverse of what I showed you on assembly. One small issue I ran into: the pipe does touch the heat shield pretty bad on the top of the engine mount there. I adjusted it with a small hammer and got it pretty well in there, but that also made this a very tight fit to get the engine mount bolted to the block, so we cussed a lot and fought and pushed and pulled and everything else in order to get these all tight. So that's all done. Let's see what else. The steering rack went back in. We didn't have any problems there. I just collapsed that steering rod by just, like I said, lining it up and sliding it straight back in. Kind of gotta make sure it's straight to do that. Once it gets in, you just slide it all the way up into the firewall, reinstall your rack, and then slide that post back down into the shaft. Make sure you didn't turn your wheel or your wheels in any direction in that process. I think we're going to do a test run real quick before we bolt the mid pipes up. Just sound like see what it sounds like wide open. I'm sure it's going to sound ridiculous, and yeah, we'll go from there. Alright, this pipes installed, or mid pipes, about 10 seconds. Alright guys, oh, that was fun. Alright, so finished the engine mount assembly, put the steering rack back in, slid this together, put that bolt in, put the grass shield on it, did the test run. Now we had to put the mid pipes on. I figured this was going to be super easy. I was wrong. So the problem I ran into here was on the passenger side pipe. When you'd seat it here, I had a slight gap at the top of it, and it wasn't close enough to enclose with the clamp. As you can see, I've got a longer bolt here. It's actually kind of bent because it's so tight. But we ended up having to use a longer bolt and a lot of force and a stand. And that's there. I've got these two nuts on it. This was just to kind of help hang it so it didn't fall on me. I'll tighten those up after everything else is done. But you come down here and that's my issue. I think we're going to be able to force it. We're going to tie it, putting a strap around these two pipes and pulling them together. This one's already slid into the socket and it has the little ceramic gasket. We reused that. I would recommend getting a new one if you can, because that was a real pain to get off. But other than that, this one's also hanging there. So what we're going to do is strap these together now and try and get this clamp together. Hopefully it works out. Hopefully the length isn't too short, not sure. Once that's done, then we'll go after this one, tough the gasket ahead, and then tighten the clamp on it as well. And then last, we'll tighten these 10 mils up here, this little carrier bracket. Do a test run, make sure it's not leaking anything or crazy, and then we'll put the cross brace on and the belly pans. Alright guys, the downpipes are finally all bolted up. It was an absolute pain in the ass. Fitment on the bridge pipe was pretty good. So we had a little bit of interference on this engine mount on this side, but we prevailed. Then we went to go put this on. We had the gap problem I just mentioned up here. Got that solved. Left this clamp loose and left the left side pipe snug, and then tried to couple this clamp up together, and it took a 6-foot pry bar shoving the entire exhaust system forward almost an inch, I'd say close to 3/4 of an inch, in order for this coupler to match up. This one's a slip joint, so you have some playroom on it, which of course it's completely bottomed out from pushing the other side so far forward, but it is sealed. I did just do a little test run, and it's no exhaust leaks that I can tell. Open pipes versus full exhaust, much quieter with the resonators and mufflers. I like both. I think as far as driving this car around, I definitely would rather have the muffler and resonator, because, well, I'd get sued by my neighbors or something. So we're going to put the belly pans on, the cross brace, and all the stuff you saw us take off at the beginning of the video. Make sure everything here fits okay, and then it'll be a startup in the shop time, and then I'll do a little go out and test drive it. Alright guys, that was a long and pain in the ass process. Let's see, it's 9:12 at night. We started at about, what did we say, 11:30? Yeah. Something like that. We took an hour break for lunch. We took another 30-45 minutes to go get parts. The final fitment, I would say, for me, would be maybe 7 of 10. Not super happy about it. You can kind of see the resonator in the center of the car. That is not in the center of the car anymore. That's just due to the fitment of the pipes. It pulled it over to the side. It's also got my exhaust tips a little bit crooked, so I'm not super happy about it. I might look into a way to resolve that. We would have to extend the passenger side downpipe just by about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So I'll look into that. Anyway, if you're doing this install, be prepared. These are RaceIQ brand tubes or pipes. I imagine they are pretty similar in design to most of the other brands, so this should give you a lot of information to help you figure out what you want to do. Anyway, I'll stop this here, and I'll do another video of it starting up with the pipes installed, and then we'll go out for a test drive.
Ready? Yep.